Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Purpose Pursuer webinar. I'm not entirely sure where I got that phrase, Purpose Pursuer, but every time I say it, it just makes me giddy because it reminds me of what my cause is here on Earth. And I'll explain that here in just a minute. In fact, it's going to have a lot to do with my talk today. But before I begin, I would like to introduce you to some of our practitioners here on the call with us. So if you guys could just wave your hand when I say your name.
Oh,
When I say your name,
yes.
typical. So Seth, there's Seth. Hi, Seth. Frank. Hi, Frank. And Brandon. So, as I say, these are some of our practitioners, and we are all here to help you identify what your purpose is and get you on the road. And it is our pleasure to do it. It makes us super happy, and it's so much fun. It's fun work and it's fulfilling work. So, before I get into my talk, and then each of us are going to share our own little talks regarding the Purpose Pursuer journey, I want to say that this happens once a month, the fourth Wednesday of every month at noon Pacific at this same Zoom link. We are very informal here. We absolutely love tangents and interruptions and real and honest communication. Because without that authenticity, without that openness and vulnerability, it's very hard, as you can imagine, for us to do our work. We believe in four principles that help us along the purpose pursuer journey. And as I mention these principles, you'll see why it is so essential that we get open and honest communication from you, whether you're here on the webinar with us or in a one-on-one call. These four principles are key to our process. So, principle number one is that your purpose and the whole idea of purpose is a divine event. It is not something that we as humans construct. It is something that the divine constructs for us. And in his genius or her genius or its genius, however you want to refer to our higher power, in the genius of the higher power, the super intelligence, when he created us with our purpose, he also created us with what we refer to as a blueprint. And it leads into principle number two, which is that each of us is a one-of-a-kind design for a reason. Super important to remember that. You probably see tons of really inspiring quotes about everyone else's being themselves. So they're taken. Their self is taken. Their identity is taken. So why try to be someone else? Nobody has your identity, so you might as well fulfill that role. Principle number two reminds me of like a snowflake design or a thumbprint or even the design of a leaf. It is absolutely one of a kind, even though it comes from the same tree. Kind of cool. So that's principle number two. Principle number three is that you have everything you need to fulfill this one of a kind design and purpose. And again, we refer to that, all those things that you need, all the tools, we refer to that as your blueprint. And we each come chock full because, again, in the supreme intelligence of the divine mind, why would he place you here with a purpose and not give you everything you need to fulfill that purpose? So that's principle number three. And then principle number four, and this is probably the most impactful of them all. It's an ongoing journey. We're never done. So even though every single one of us has gone through the blueprint process, which is an actual process, there's a beginning and an end, we're still engaged in the act of understanding our blueprint, pursuing our purpose, and achieving our cause because it's an infinite journey. We're never done because, that's kind of encouraging, actually. It suggests that the range of your possibility is limitless. And we know this, we hear this, and yet are we acting on it? So again, I want to open up a conversation. So if you happen to be on the call with us today, please feel free to interject at any time. We're super informal here. We welcome your thoughts because again, we can't do our work as the four principles suggest without that open and honest two-way communication. So feel free. Also, just some housekeeping here. Our website is blueprintprocess.com, and you can find all the practitioners there and a little bit more about them. We are super receptive to you talking to all of us if you want to, in your effort to identify and uncover your purpose and start working towards it. So we love talking about this. So don't you worry, it's free to just sit down and talk with any of us for the first time. And then let me see. Oh, as I say, the fourth Wednesday of every month at noon Pacific is when we do these Purpose Pursuer webinars. I'll probably mention this again, but just in case, October 22nd is our next one. And we would love to have you as a part of the call, of course. So interject with any questions or thoughts or feedback as we go. And there are only certain of us will be actually having a presentation today, myself included. And then the others, please, anybody in between presentations, we would love to take a minute, ask for questions and ask for shares and feedback. Everybody is a presenter here, even if this is your first time. So thank you for letting me do all of that housekeeping. So earlier I mentioned my particular cause, which is very connected to purpose, and I'll explain that maybe later, but I mentioned my cause as part of the Purpose Pursuer website and journey because I believe it's my reason for being here is to help people identify and use their purpose, as well as create this group of practitioners who do the same so that more people find out all those four principles, that they have a divine purpose, they're one of a kind for a reason, they have everything they need right now to pursue that purpose, and the pursuit of it is infinite. So this group of practitioners helps me do that. Because, oh my gosh, what would it be like in our world if every single person knew what their purpose was and was actively pursuing it? And had the confidence that comes from knowing that they've got all the tools right now to do so. So what I want to talk about today is how the Purpose Pursuer journey is enhanced greatly by partnering with our maker. And in my promo video, if you happen to see that, I talk about the challenges that come our way as part of the Purpose Pursuer journey. It's very easy to think that once you find your purpose, life just all falls into place and the angels are singing and the flowers are blooming. And sometimes it feels that way, but it often feels like there's sacrifice, there's risk, there's hard work, there's daunting challenges, there's doubt, self-recrimination, you name it. Sometimes it's the desire to quit, give it up as a bad job and go work at Burger King. I guarantee you that happens. But the beautiful thing about purpose is that it just keeps calling you. You're so enthralled with your purpose, you can't help but go through those challenges. So, by way of analogy to what my point is here, is you know what it's like if you see a shallow river and you notice that there are rocks all the way through this riverbed where the river just flows right around the rock. Well, this is what happens when you understand and believe in your purpose. You are like water, where the rocks are challenges, obstructions, naysayers, negative or little feedback. All of these things that crop up, financial challenge, business challenge, family challenge, relational challenge, you name it. The river is full of rocks, whether you know your purpose or not. But here's the difference in knowing your purpose that I've noticed. Now, I've known my purpose since 2006-ish, so like 20 some years I've known my purpose. And I'm still working on this. I find that when I come up against a rock, I'm water, I'm going along, doo, 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 and I hit a rock, I notice that I become overly fixated on that rock, as if that is my purpose. Hello, it's not. Water's purpose is to flow and to feed. So if you can imagine the mind of a water droplet, it's focusing on flowing. It's just finding the easiest course. It's not focusing on the rock. If it were focusing on the rock, it most likely would splash against it and its days would end. But instead, it's focusing on the flow. So it's finding the flow. And this is what we know our reticular activating system does for us. If we're focused on a problem, our reticular activating system is going to perseverate on that problem. It will help us focus on the problem. And so the rock that was at one time maybe about this big starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And not only is it taking up our entire brain space, so we can't focus on flowing or our purpose, but it also seems to be more and more daunting. And we have fewer and fewer ideas as to how to solve it. And we begin to think that we are less than the rock. That's the problem with focusing on the challenge, the doubt, the fear, the anxiety is at some point there's a tipping point, a negative one, in which the problem feels much, much larger than ourselves. And this is why partnering with the dude that gave you the purpose and the blueprint to fulfill the purpose is so important. I mentioned in my promo video, if I try to control my mind on my own and I try not to focus on the rock, don't focus on the rock, I have marginal success, sometimes more than others. And if I let God help me with my purpose, and I'll explain that in a minute, then flow becomes a temptation. Right there, when I'm facing the rock, flow is kind of distracting me. And the more I do this, remember I said I'm not good at this yet, perfect at this yet. The more I do this, the more distracting flow becomes compared to the challenge. When I first started working on this, and especially when I wasn't doing it with God's help, the frickin' rock was all I could think about. I couldn't will myself past that rock. So again, when you turn to God, or when you turn to your purpose, that becomes a beacon. It beckons you. And so that rock keeps its proper perspective, which if you think about water and how it moves around the rock is like nothing to it. It might get hung up on that rock for a split second or a big bramble or something. It might get hung up for a little bit. It might slow down a little bit, but then it just keeps right on going because it's focused on flow. So I was just talking about the reticular activating system. If you don't know what that is, it's a function in our brain that we all have. And you've probably heard the example before that if one day you decide you're going to buy a yellow Jeep because there are no yellow Jeeps in your town, you really want a yellow Jeep. You want to be one of a kind because you are. So you decide, okay, I'm going to go buy this yellow Jeep. Well, as soon as you start the process of buying the yellow Jeep, what do you all of a sudden start to see? Yellow Jeeps. Because you told your reticular activating system, whether you knew it or not, that that's what you were looking for. That's what you were interested in. That's why it's so important. This dude in our brain is working all the time. What are you feeding it? I guarantee you that, like me, when a challenge comes out of the blue, because that's what challenges do, we don't predict challenges. They come unexpectedly, and that's why they derail us so badly. So there's some serious work you can do ahead of time, and going through the blueprint, knowing your purpose, that's a big, big help. Because if you don't know what your purpose is and that rock appears, you have no reason to go around the rock. You have nothing bigger for which to be a part of. Purpose, remember, principle number one says the purpose is a divine event. That is automatically bigger than you and bigger than the rock. So if you can trust that you're here by way of divine design, that helps you keep the rock in proper perspective. And it helps you stay focused on that which really matters, which is not solving the challenge, whatever the challenge is. It's doing your purpose. And here's what's amazing. And I've only discovered this as I've been experimenting with this myself. If I focus on my purpose and if I focus on God, who gave me my purpose, then that rock not only seems insignificant, but I'm also able to solve the challenge because I've placed myself, by placing myself, my mental self, in line with my purpose and in line with my designer, I've automatically made myself bigger than the rock. When I place myself with the rock, and you know how compelling the rocks, the challenges can be. You study them to try to figure out how you can get around them. But as I say, when you study them, they just become bigger and more complex because you've kept yourself at the level of the rock. So knowing your blueprint, knowing your purpose becomes all compelling. Just like that water, when it comes up across the rock, it has one thing on its brain, and that is to flow. And as you know, as you identify your blueprint and you identify your purpose with the practitioners, that purpose will become so compelling that the doubts and fears that used to hold you back, you'll notice you no longer are intimidated by them because you recognize intuitively that your purpose, your divine reason for being here, is automatically bigger than the rock. That's what we would love to do on this purpose pursuer journey, is help you overcome the rocks and get about living the reason you're here to live. Because again, if you think about the world today, just current events today, if you imagine that every single person knew their purpose and were getting about doing their purpose, more focused on flow than the rock, just imagine the differences we would see in our world. It's compelling. And it's the reason I'm here. All right. So now that I'm done with my little talk, and before we move on, Seth, by the way, we're going to go to you next. So prepare. Let's go Seth and then Brandon and then Ray. But before we go to Seth, anybody have any questions or shares, comments before we move on?
You had mentioned we were talking about flow, and what popped up into my head is, oh, flow is great. That's the point, right? Because we get things from block to flowing, and
Mm.
so and I wrote down here, flow becomes the focus, question mark.
Mm.
Whereas flow is actually, I think what we're talking about is flow could actually be a distraction.
Mm.
Is that correct?
I
The,
was referring to the river and the
okay,
river's purpose as flow.
okay,
And I would also say that flow actually is in my experience, flow is a really good indicator of being on purpose. When things are kind of herky-jerky, confusing, and chaotic, most likely you're not on purpose, or you're at least
okay.
not thinking of purpose. So it's a great question, and I would say yes, it's born out of the analogy of the water, and I would say that flow, yeah, actually is the objective.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Shares. Hi, Ray. We cannot hear you, sir.
Just like to add to that.
Thanks.
So the so you're just to get clarity in my own mind, the river's purpose is to flow.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if Frank was referring to some other different kind of flow. Is that fair to
Mm.
say, Frank?
Yeah, no, yeah, you nailed it. I was talking in terms of like say for instance, how to conduct business
Oh, yeah.
and actually knowing uh, well, I'm focused on the outcome. I'm focused on if I have my process down, my flow, then I'm gonna it's gonna be have a satisfactory, satisfying, fulfilling little, okay, I made a touchdown here. Uh, and that becomes the all-consuming
Yeah.
thing versus it's not the net result. It's actually having that way to go consistently congruently all the time, come rain or shine or heck or high water and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that's kind of like what I was thinking of, but I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but that also kind of makes me want to go back to the whole river thing, that what you just explained is like the river also.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Ray, I really appreciate the clarifying question because now I understand, Frank, where you're coming from. And yeah, I would probably refer to that differently. However, your point is a really good one. There is a transactional nature that the world would suggest, a process, I think, that you referred to. So if I
Yeah.
do 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, then this is what I'll get. And doesn't work like that at all, does it?
Yeah.
And sometimes don't we wish it would? I do. Like, can you just give me a signpost, so it's super obvious what I'm supposed to do?
Mm.
Thanks to you both. Any other questions or shares before we move to Seth? Okay, the man, go.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Hold on to your biscuits a little bit because this one went in a few different directions. Tammy mentioned the rock. Um, and of course, as I was preparing, there's a big rock, I think, that was sitting in the middle of my desk. So today I'm going to go through, for people that haven't met me, I use my adoption story as a way to share how, when we look at hard things and confront our humanness with incredible vulnerability, we're able to work through those things that haven't been working for us or serving us well. As we do that work, we're able to step into a place where, and this is the phrase that's been beating me over the head for a few weeks now, all of you is welcome. Very few environments that I've been in, and not necessarily the fault of the environment, but really the behaviors that I picked up along the way. I don't think I had a community of men around me where I was 100% open and vulnerable. I never really shared all of me. I never confronted those things that were getting in the way, that I assessed that the people that were around me, whatever I was dealing with, would have been too much for them. So let's talk about that all of you is welcome piece. Because I think the way it's played out for me is I talk about this noxious bag. In this noxious bag as an adoptee, I'll just go down. This was a nice list on just a quick Google search for adoptee trauma.
Mm.
These are the things that were in my bag and what Tammy was talking about in terms of a reticular activating system. The trauma that's listed: anxiety and depression, feelings of emptiness and constant worry are common. My birth family gave me up, so at any minute, my adopted family could possibly give me up. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Hmm.
Never imagined that in utero, as my mom knew that she was going to have to give me up during my development, that I was in an environment of stress before I was even born.
Hmm.
Attachment issues. Of course, I'd have attachment issues because the main relationship that we're told in our life as kids is our parents. Mine, didn't stay around, and I ended up in a different place. And there's more grace there and forgiveness because I've since met my birth mom, and we've healed each other so far over the last few years that it's been unbelievable. Identity confusion. Who the heck am I? Like, I didn't have identity from my birth family. I didn't. I think the way I describe my adoption family is I was loved, I was safe, I was all those things, but I felt like I was at a sleepover. I was safe, but I was kind of ready to go home. Thinking of a kid like day one, yeah, this is great. The family's fine and all that. by day 3, you're kind of like, hey, I want to get home and get back to my stuff. Like it's time to go. Low self-esteem, shame, and guilt. Shame for being adopted. Having this story that you would tell kids and they would be like, oh, you're probably in a better place right now. And it was just like, so whatever you might have been feeling didn't really matter because you should feel a different way about it. So in that environment, certainly things have shifted in terms of resources available and support groups, and just the technology alone enables groups like this. All of that is far different today than it was, say, in the mid 60s, early 70s, and stuff like that. So that's definitely enabled a lot more of the work that we see today. So the work that went into that noxious bag and doing the blueprint process was seeing that that noxious bag and that list that I just went down, actually, every one of those things that I talked about had an opposite. The not being accepted made me more acceptable of others different from me. The not good enough enabled me to serve those people that were also going through those types of things. So in each event, we were able to step through that list, which wasn't like necessarily a complaint. It was more of a, this list isn't working for me. Being able to see what was on the other side of it, and then see how that enabled me to do the things that I did in my life. The interesting part of this whole thing is when that noxious bag that I talked about, and quite frankly, I carried this thing with me everywhere. Probably from like 4 years old is probably the earliest memory when I, as Tammy and I went through, that I had an event that I knew I put in this notional mental bag in my head. And then Tammy, I think you and I started when I was 57 years old, and you asked me, hey, what's that? I think we were just joking around, and I said, hey, what this notion of the bag? And you're like, well, yeah, it's right there in the corner. You carry it with you everywhere you're traveling. Like you were joking about it, but as we pieced it together, I had carried that thing around for 53 years. 53. Like this was part of my outfit. It was, if I went into meetings, I would just set the noxious bag down and just, that was my comfort and my identity and all that stuff. So to be able to do the work to release that has taken a weight off, has allowed me finally in my interactions and my relationships and my leadership to show up in a way that I'm focused on the sanctity of the individual across the table for me. I may have a job to do in terms of mission, purpose, and vision with an organization or what have you. But I know that a multiplier effect underneath that is the sanctity of the individual and helping them show up in a way that they know that all of them is welcome. When I'm able to demonstrate for them that all of them is welcome, and I'm willing to sit in the gap, I'm willing to sit with them in this shadow work that we talk about. And we're able to go through those shadows, identify where they came from, identify how they're showing up in the events that we talk about in Blueprint, or a lot of the work I do is in the Mankind Project, as people are working through some pretty big issues. We go back and we solve these things that have traditionally gotten in the way of our, not only our personal development, but now in our professional lives and our leadership and all of the relationships that we talk about. So there's a few interesting things when all of you is welcome. I'm now able for the first time to sit in a space and be present. I'm able to show up with my humanness. I'm able to show up with the gold that I bring to a conversation wholly and completely. When you're able to do that, I can't even begin to tell you all how the entire landscape changes. Your presence in society shifts, your engagement that you have with others completely shifts. Your leadership completely shifts. You're able to love yourself more. You're able to value and honor yourself. There's no more secrets. And that to me is really when all of you is present, there's no more secrets. There's no more noxious bag. And the weight that comes off you and what happens to your spirit in that space is something I want for everyone that's involved, not only in the blueprint process, but even in their individual work in whatever form that looks like. So as I conclude this, I would love to hear from you all about, what does it look like for you? When has all of you ever been welcome? Where was that? And what does that look like in your life? If you can't answer that, that's okay. So my invitation is to come into this space then, because this is the work of a lifetime. That's far worth any amount of time that it's going to take to be able to be present and to be completely welcome. So that's what I have for you all today.
Oh,
Wow.
I love it. Yeah, right, Frank. Yeah.
Wow.
It's super cool how the way you talked about the noxious bag and the adoption story is that was your identity. That's who you saw yourself to be. And you're even, as you say, happy. It felt comforting and warm and safe to have it, even though it was oozing and dripping and negative and nasty.
Mm.
But identifying your blueprint all of a sudden became way more intriguing and interesting. And it allowed you to set that down. So completely trading out one identity for another. And of course, the one that you've identified through Blueprint is your real God-given identity and so much more powerful than the noxious bag, of course. I love how you explained that transition and what Blueprint did to help guide the transition towards the truth. Any other questions or shares regarding Seth? Yeah, Frank.
Wow. That was the whole idea of being welcome.
Mm.
Um, uh, it popped for me, Seth, what you said. Um, all of you is welcome now. And you asked this question at the end of it, how many of you have felt welcomed in a place? And the thing, this is where it popped for me, it was like, well, I can probably count, well, put it this way, the minimum amount of numbers that I could possibly dredge up where I felt like welcomed versus, hey, we could either, we're neutral or we don't welcome you. And what popped for me is bringing welcome. Regardless if there's already welcome for me, I'm talking about me, it's like to bring the welcome. It was not relying on being welcomed. I just come pre-equipped with welcome. And the phrase that stuck in my head from yesterday, a conversation I was having was assume welcome. Actually, the idea that I wrote yesterday was assume familiarity. In other words, there is no stranger danger out there. There's because I bring it. It's like because I know what might be there already, and I know what the yearning is. So why not pack it and bring it? And yeah, so that's what kind of popped for me.
I love it. I love the idea of bringing that sense of welcome yourself, suggesting that both of you, all of you, probably myself included, have gone from uh, whatever we thought we were before, understanding ourselves better now, but also loving self. Like the blueprint that we talk about, you can see the graphic representation of it behind Frank and behind Brandon. That blueprint is the identity. It is all of you. It is the divine identity. And so Why wouldn't you bring a sense of welcome? You are the divine expressing itself in a one of a kind way. So why wouldn't that be interesting and compelling and full of self-love and appreciation?
Mm.
Thank you, Frank. Anything else before we head over to Sir Brandon? All right, Brandon, the floor is yours.
Um, it's funny because I did have something else, but I was waiting because I knew that I was next, Tammy. So thanks for giving the order of speakers. Um, because what popped for me is this ties almost perfectly with what I was going to talk about. And it's just this sense I've been getting over the last 2 to 4 weeks and, maybe beyond that even, of just a whole bunch of volatility around us, uncertainty, tragic events, just a lot of that kind of stuff in the environment. And some of those situations, man, I couldn't help but think when Seth, when you were talking, was what if more people had the mindset of all of you is welcome? Like all of you, not all of you that matches with exactly all of me, and not all of you that thinks exactly the same way that I do, but all of you is welcome. And the way that I've been thinking about that lately is through the lens of understanding, recognizing, revealing my own blueprint, helping others do the same. And with the understanding that we're one of a kind, our blueprints are unique and one of a kind, our purpose is unique and one of a kind. And so if I believe that about myself and my clients believe that about themselves, why wouldn't we then believe that about everyone? And if I believe I'm meant to flow in the direction I'm meant to flow, acknowledging the rocks and the challenges that are just inevitably going to be in the river, however, I'm still going to flow where I'm meant to flow, then why wouldn't you, Ray? And why wouldn't you, Seth and Tammy and everybody? Why wouldn't they be meant to flow in the direction that they're meant to flow and lean into their unique design and lean into their unique blueprint? Well, if they should, like they are meant to do that. And they aren't you, they're unique. We've been saying that all along. So it's inevitable that we're going to have maybe some disagreements. We're going to see things a little differently. However, can you imagine if we all had the approach that we're talking about here today to accept that? Because all of you is welcome. We accept that. And then we can either engage in a way that helps us maybe learn something, maybe learn a perspective that we didn't have before. That's scary sometimes, huh?
Mm.
Take a point of view that we're not steeped in every single day and that we don't believe, and be willing to kind of listen to that and think, well, I mean, I'm not all knowing, so I guess it could be that way. And engage in a way of that we're curious about learning each other's blueprint. And man, wouldn't it be cool if not only we all believe we have this and we lean into our purpose, but wouldn't it be cool if we kind of work to understand what that is? Because that person's blueprint and purpose, that might be exactly what you need to team up with at this time of your life. That might be the exact person, and their blueprint might be exactly what you need right now. And you might not ever know it if you don't adopt a mindset of all of you is welcome. And so, man, that really spoke to me, Seth, and tied right into what I've been thinking about a lot lately. The second part of this that's really been resonating with me and alive in me lately is on the same same path here of uncertainty and volatility and complexity. And when tragedy strikes, we as humans we're looking for something stable in the volatility, something certain in the uncertainty. And I think that's just natural that we do that. And I just think about what would it be like if I didn't understand my blueprint, if I haven't done that kind of work to reveal it and to see my uniqueness and see all that is unique about me and see all that I've carried with me everywhere I've been and all the things that I'll take with me wherever I go. Had I not done that work and been able to take comfort in that stability, that piece of the puzzle that is stable and I'm confident in. And it's like knowing if I hadn't done that work, what would I grab onto in times of chaos and tragedy and major life transitions? You know, what do people grab onto? It's different for everybody, I think. But it's something. They're reaching for something. And it's just been alive with me that, man, the more you understand what we've been talking about today, that you have a unique blueprint, a unique purpose, and we need you to lean into it and want you to be your natural. Like that's what I say when I see a leader who's got a natural style. I think that's whether they've gone through blueprint process or not. I see a leader who, when I say they're natural, they have a natural style. I don't mean natural born leader, like they have these certain specific traits. And if they weren't born with them, then they wouldn't be as good leaders. No, I mean a leader who's just comfortable in themselves and leaning into their uniqueness, their strengths, their passions, their values, their blueprint, their purpose, and leaning into that and just being confident about it, and not pretending to have all the answers, not pretending to be strong and the best at all these other things that maybe they're not. They're just confident in themselves and their blueprint and their purpose. And to me, that gives them then stability, foundation, a tether, a buoy. A buoy. I heard somebody use the metaphor of a buoy surrounding this topic a little while ago, and I loved it because a buoy still allows you to kind of rock and flow and flex. However, it also doesn't allow you to just be blown away and washed away and destroyed, right? You can tie to the buoy and you float and it's forgiving and you can rock this way and that way, but you're still tethered, right? And to me, man, I mean everyone, especially leaders, right? If you had that buoy, I mean, how much more confidently could you face those complex and uncertain situations?
Well said. I love how you took off from Seth's talk, and I completely understand why that concept of all of you is welcome really was compelling. And I love how you turned it into what if all of you felt that way? And it connects to what Frank was saying too. What if you brought your sense of welcome with you? And that to me is what you were saying about the leader who comes to the table knowing his or her worth and her flow, her reason, his or her reason for being. That person is not only super compelling, but they're shining their light. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing here, not beating at a rock, but flowing, like the buoy, juking and jiving. And I love how you said, we need you to do that because we're all leaders when it comes to our blueprint. But of course, our blueprint is unique. So we're not leaders in everything. We cannot be. And in fact, Brandon, in your sharing with me when we were uncovering your blueprint, I remember times when you would talk about difference in leaders and how some leaders were just really compelling to you and others were good, technically good, but they weren't as compelling. And I think that speaks it, man. If we can find our own flow and lead in that flow, we are shining our light. And then that means we're doing what we're supposed to be doing here. We're all meant to impact other people and be impacted. And so, yeah, we need you. I love that call. We need you. Thank you. Any questions or comments before we head over to Ray? All righty then. Sir Ray, are you ready? You're on mute, love.
Yeah, I think all of us here and people listening now and maybe in the future are probably all blown away by what Seth talked about. Being welcome and all. Yeah, thank you for that, Seth. That was great. And Brendan too. But I wanted to talk about how I wanted to pull up something that I came across just today. So this is, just off the top here that I wanted to talk about this. The map of consciousness. It was something that was coined by Dr. David Hawkins, and it has a scale of from 30 to 100 about different levels of consciousness, and because I'm in a meditative community, they talk about this all the time. And he talks about anything that's below 200. So the scale goes, from 20, which is the worst, all the way to 1,000, which is enlightenment. So you go from shame to enlightenment. But when you're at anything below 200, everything feels forced. And as you were talking earlier, everything is chaotic, and maybe the buoy is bouncing around and you're just hanging on. Everything's difficult. And that what was interesting to me about it was that how few of us move up that scale from wherever we start. And of the billions of people around the planet, they took a global, what do I want to say, percentage of whatever people would move up, how many points. And it was a global thought that you'll only move up 5 points in your entire life. So and that the vast majority of people are at 200 or below, which means everyone is struggling. And why are we struggling? Well, I'll just use Zeth's point. We're not feeling welcome or feeling judged, ridiculed, made fun of, whatever. Not feeling like we have value. And I found the article a little bit shocking, thinking that it's really like this, because I live in this little tranquil community here. And to think outside of it, I've been around, but it's hard to believe that it's that steep. And so the thing about being tethered to something like Brendan was talking about, to the buoy, this is a tool that will allow you over time, right? Zeth also pointed this out too, that the time that you put into this, it's the best thing you could ever spend your time in, no matter what, unless you want to say, if you want to jokingly say, well, except for my grandkids, But still, this is probably one of the best places to spend your time, to be tethered, to be calm within the chaos of the storm. That when you first start the process, it feels a little awkward.
Hmm.
That feeling of feeling awkward is actually a positive thing, because that's where the growth is.
Mm.
That's where the understanding is. That is where the acceptance is of your own self, just to begin with your own self. And then to add again what Seth was talking about, or what Frank was talking about, to bring the welcome. You'll get to that point where you will bring the welcome. And that and then you bring the welcome, and you're welcoming everybody into your space. If you're at a gathering and there's 100 people around, anyone that comes up to you, you just are at peace, and yourself. You're just, like you said earlier, Tammy, your personality is already taken.
Yeah.
Who you are, what you're made of, what your unique blueprint is already taken. It may be hard to believe that of the 8 or 9 billion people there are on the planet, but everybody has a unique one, and it's always growing if you grow it. Hence this, consciousness thing that Dr. Hawkins was talking about. What was the other thing I wanted to say about the scaling was that once you start on it, here's the other thing. You can go from complete shame at number 20. You can go from there all the way to 1,000 in one lifetime. If you are tethered to the buoy, rock solid, that you can ride the storms, be in the tornado, and just be, not a big deal. Don't become attached to it. Let it flow, as you say. That's about all I've got today for you, but I welcome everybody to come and talk to all of us, like Tammy was saying.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. Thank you for sharing that article. Would it be possible for you to pop that link into the chat, maybe?
I don't know. How do you pop? I have it on my phone. Is there a way I could?
Are you on your phone currently with the camera, or are you on a computer?
I'm on a laptop. Yeah.
Why don't you just send it to me and I'll make sure it goes out with the recording.
Okay.
Cool.
I'll do
Thank
that. Yeah, it's a wonderful piece. Shockingly, that you only move up the vast majority, 80 to 90% of the people on the planet only move up 5 points in their entire life, which means that most of us are walking around in our adolescence.
It's fascinating. Yeah, I think that people would benefit from the entire article.
Yeah.
I like too something Brandon was mentioning. Well, we probably have all talked about it at one point or another, but when someone who, as Frank and Seth were talking about, bring their welcome with them, that is the light of consciousness, isn't it? In your own particular way. And what happens when someone else is bathed in light? They themselves light up. So this article, to me, I have not read it, but it inspires me, motivates me to do this work even more, because every one person who gets turned on from the inside with their personal anchor, their personal buoy, their purpose, every single person who gets turned on and starts to light up, now they're lighting up at least the faces of everyone around them. And then I don't know about you guys, but when I feel the sun, especially in early spring, when I feel the warmth of the sun hit me somewhere, I turn. I want to feel it on my face. So wouldn't that be cool if that was the impact we had? We light ourselves up, we work to light ourselves up, and because we light ourselves up, people automatically are also given it's like an invitation to light up and to understand their own welcome and bring it with them. Yeah, Ray.
Yeah, I would add to that what Brendan touched on was that somebody is going to need your light,
That's right.
your skills at this moment in their life. They need you. So to your point about one lights up the one person, lights up another one, like you have said many times. I'm not for everybody, but all of us are for each other. We're all connected, so perfect point there that come to this because you never know whose life you are going to change when your light gets turned on, as Brendan and yourself are talking about.
Well said. It's so compelling. And if you were to ask someone that doesn't understand purpose the way we understand it, what purpose is, many people think to themselves, well, my purpose is to help others. In Blueprint, we talk about yes, and that's the definition of purpose, in my view. The definition of purpose is to help others. So what we do in Blueprint is let's figure out how and why and with whom and for what reason. And that is so compelling because that is the buoy. And isn't it interesting how we as humans are actually compelled by the eternal?
Mm.
We are more drawn to the eternal than we are the temporary if given a choice.
Mm.
So isn't that our work, is to remind people that they have the eternal within them? And then the curiosity should take over from there. I do? Well, then what is it? How do I express the divine in a unique way? Actually, Ray, you said something that I wanted to pick up on. And that's something we talk about a lot in Blueprint, that you are here at this point in the world's history for a reason. Like the divine intelligence didn't place you randomly. And if you knew your purpose, you would see why.
Mm.
And that too becomes super compelling. I remember when I discovered mine, it was like, I better get going. It fills you with that sense of motivation and drive
Mm, mm,
to
mm.
do what you're supposed to do. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Frank.
I think, yeah, no, Brandon said it, and I wrote it down here. He used this term, coming to the table. Uh, and I wrote, knowing, being sure of your worth. And it's like being in the boat,
Mm.
being in the boat on the rocky sea. I'm in the boat. It's a great place in this boat. I had to struggle to get here, by the way, and hoist myself aboard the boat. But I'm on the boat. The boat's good. It's seaworthy. It's not leaking. It's good. It's nice and warm here. And so to come from that point of, well, okay, I'm going to use the word advantage. Like, well, it was brought up to me as like there are 12 whining guys in a boat in a storm, and there's one of them is sleeping. And wait, how can this one be sleeping? Does he not know that we're dying here? We're on the verge of being drowned. And to actually, he sleeps
Mm.
and then he wakes. Then there's no more hazard, so to speak. And he says, had you guys known, well, this is not a quote, but he goes, had you not known who you were in the boat with,
Mm.
what was already here? And it's like, to actually have that certainty, that assurance of what it is that you are bringing.
Yeah.
And it's not everything. I mean, but it's stuff that you're sure about. And there's a joy that comes with that. And there's not a shrinking back from that.
Mm.
It's like the assumed welcome comes easy like that. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to be facing, but there's good stuff there.
Yeah.
And again, I'm coming from a point of advantage. It's like,
Mm.
I know what's available. Somebody voiced it this way the other day. He said, if you were to invest the next 12 to 24 months hanging around with me, it's unforeseen, the life changes and catapults
Mm.
and leaps that are available, not just for you, but I'm on the same journey.
Mhm.
And it's like, when I look at it that way, it's not about my business. It's about what is there to actually dig deeper and stay without running and finding out. It's like when I'm dealing with somebody in the jail, and they're so closed off and down.
Mhm.
It's like they don't know what to think. But something they said about their grandma or their auntie. And I said, "What does that tell me about your auntie?" "Well, she took me to church, and she
Mhm.
talked to me all the time about Jesus and this and that." And I go, "Say more about that." And that is the question that I dare say years ago I would never want to ask that. This guy's a big bruiser. But it's like, no, tell me about this. I see this love, this
Mhm.
focus, this passion of yours. It's that tether, it's that buoy in this sea of, hey, I don't know, I'm going to be going upstate here in a few months, weeks, whatever, and I don't know how long I'll be there, but it may be the, hey, what are you groping for? What are you grasping for? What is the meaning and significance of this? And you said it, David, you see this thing happen in front of you, where this closed person, they start smiling.
Mhm.
That little ring of water shows up in their eye. I mean, because guys, we don't like, especially if you're a big bruiser from a gang, you don't like crying. And it's like, but that water shows up in your eye and that quiver in the voice, and you go, there it is.
Mhm.
There it is, the purpose. The purpose is making itself known here a little bit. Where do we go from here? What's the
Mhm.
next step here? Because, and they see it. They go, there is actually a next step from here. And it's like, wonder if this is wonderful. By the way, I don't
Mhm.
know if I'll ever see them again, but it's like, hey, something has started here, and it wasn't of my doing. It was divine, it was eternal. And it was like, hey, if I want to have something to pray about, I'll pray about that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Continue on. So
Mm.
Thanks, Frank. Ray, was there something, I know we're over time here, but was there
Yeah,
something you were going to say?
I just wanted to quickly touch on what you were talking about. And you were talking about the time, there's a reason that you're here right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I would also like to just add quickly, there's a reason that you're still here now.
Oh, nice.
In other words,
Yeah.
somebody that's 70, 80, 90 years
Hmm.
old still has a blueprint to discover and
Hmm.
contribute to this world, to this divine. And
Yeah.
doesn't matter the age. Geez, sometimes you meet a 5-year-old kid that just bowls you over. But I just wanted to say that to the folks that might be listening that are a little older, that
Absolutely. Oh, thank
never
you.
think that you don't have something to contribute. Because
Yeah.
actually, as you get older, the wisdom is there. You just don't, it's a just for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I just know this, or I just do this. No,
Hmm.
it took you a lifetime to get there. So
Yeah.
share it.
Oh, that's lovely. I love the word you used. It's a tribute to the world. And you're still here. So get going.
Get going. Get the let
Thanks.
out.
That's right. Thanks to everyone. And we'll see you next month right here at the Purpose Pursuer webinar on October 22nd at noon Pacific. Thanks, practitioners.